This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while! It's been long delayed!
To mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. And yes, one day we will rule the world.
Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is Series 2, episode number 2. We're going a little bit old school this evening, as promised previously, but we're live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, A.C.E Podcast Nation. Of course, you're home to many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So do give us a follow on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell for notifications, keep up to date on all the latest shows and series. And of course, this podcast now part of the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first dedicated sports podcast network. Find the next show that you will enjoy or love and join the team at sportssocial.co.uk. You can find a link to our Andy Campbell Football Show website in the description below, and I urge you all to give us a follow on Spotify and other such things. Really big push as all the shows on the channel are being separated on the audio side, so really big push for people to download the audio versions and give those various things a follow on Spotify and wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Google, all that good stuff. But that will help us out a lot. Even if you watch us live on Facebook or YouTube, go and download the audio version tomorrow. Help us out because I'm greedy. But just as we wait for some stragglers, some latecomers, a big thank you as ever to Black Diamond Sports, who are a global sports agency who represents sports stars from around the world. And for more information, you can visit their social media pages and, of course, their incredible, lovely website. The links to that are in the description below and the closing credits at the end of the show. We thank them for all their help around the channel, the show, and of course, sponsoring today's show, the Andy Campbell Football Show, sponsored by Bespoke Financial and Darren Ralston. And Darren is giving away a free whale worth £140 cash with any new policy which is taken out. Just check him out, give him a call. Do not miss out on an incredible offer. They've looked after Andy with the various policies over the years, the critical illness, the injury cover. They are top of their field. They provide award-winning service. We are very proud to partner with such a top-class brand. And I'd like to think that if you give them a ring and you explore their services, Darren or his colleagues will help you out. Tell them that we sent you and they will sort you out with whatever you need. They will look after you. And, of course, if you take up a service with them, you get £140 cash back. What is not to love about that is all I can say. But let's get into it. And introducing, he is the goal collector, the fox in the box, still the king of the Millennium Stadium. He is an ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough hero, Davy Jones's favourite son, and for the first time on the Sports Social Network, officially, it is Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, mate?
Good evening. Yeah, looking forward to this, old school, bringing it
Indeed.
back to how we used to do it. But just obviously to fill people in with that obviously we tried this, didn't we, over Christmas? I think we might have tried it without a guest in it, and it worked really well. So we're thinking We love the guests, by the way. The guests what make this show as well. But we think once in maybe it's a month, once every 6 weeks, we're going to just try and bring it in so we can just talk about things that we've missed, football-related stuff, which we've somehow not had time to talk about because football evolves, sport evolves, and there's so much to talk about, which seems... And that's saying something, by the way, because we just finished the Euro show, so it's really looking forward to it because there's lots to talk about.
Well, I think the thing is, mate, as well, is when you got a guest, these people giving up their time, of course, so we got these various features like Tell Me Why and things like this, or any other business where we can kind of speak to them, get their views on the biggest stories of the week and stuff like that, and over the weekend. But you want to move on to their career, their stories, their anecdotes and things like that sooner rather than later. And what this does to give us a chance to do is it gives us the chance to, to talk about Middlesbrough, to talk about Cardiff, to talk about whatever it may be, Harry Kane, 160 million.
Yeah. Also, to answer questions from the viewers as well, because the viewers ask direct questions to the guests, which is fine. But the interaction we've had and what we've learned over the time that we've done it is to interact, and we've been quite interactive with our viewers. So sometimes it's nice to give something back and just continue that, because the relationship we've got with people who watch it is brilliant. So I want that to continue.
Absolutely, mate. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, this show was built on interaction with the viewers, and that was one of the kind of selling points, particularly early on, but all along, is like that you get access to footballers, ex-footballers, managers, whatever it may be, people from the football world, like you cannot get elsewhere, where you can ask them questions in real time. And what we have found is, obviously, as we've grown, you have more viewers and more questions, which means that people don't get their questions maybe asked and answered as much as they would have liked, or certainly for the guys and girls who were watching, way back.
Yeah, totally agree.
You were able to get 4 or 5 questions answered in the show, easy. Yeah. But whereas now that's a bit more tricky, because you've got, as I've said to you a couple of times, there's been a couple of hundred people watching on YouTube. Sometimes it's very difficult then to navigate that, and people on Facebook and people... And more people on Periscope as well.
People get frustrated as well, and people get frustrated if they ask a question doesn't get answered, and they ask it again, and it still doesn't get answered. And I get that, you know what I mean. But we're limited to what we can ask people as well. So it's,
we've got questions too.
These kind of shows are an open forum. You got a question, throw it in.
Answer it. Well, here's a question for you, mate. If you were spending £50 million on a defender, would you rather spend it on Ben White or Raphael Varane?
I get everybody's point, and I've just read the comment in there about him being worth more than, I think these transfer fees and the amount of money which gets put on English players and British players is a little bit added because of maybe potential, because they're paying over the odds because of that, I believe. Varane, is Varane going to sell on? No, he's not. He's probably not going to get any more value after a move to United. Won't be able to make any money on him. Similar to Harry Kane, it's dead money. It's going to be a dead money transfer. So for me, I think Ben White, for example, could move on again to another club. So I think it's quite clever from a club like Brighton, because Brighton they've got a catch-22 situation here. They either take a big transfer fee now, or they put on a selling clause, which then gets them money back later on. They've probably gone for all the money now because it's better to get the money out in the open. So for them, I don't blame them, to be fair.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm sure from Manchester United point of view, 50 million for Varane is a steal to play alongside Harry Maguire. He could be the missing piece for them. However, across Europe, then you've got Chelsea offering 130 million or whatever it was for Haaland, Dortmund turning that down. But next summer, Haaland can go for £63 million release clause. Like, is that one season for Dortmund worth best part of 70 odd million? It's a difficult decision, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. Yes, it's business as well, because they probably look at the value and what's going on in the world as well. Because where's Haaland going to go, for example? He's going to have to come to England because there's no money in Italy. It doesn't look like. There's certainly no money in Spain by the looks of it, because everyone's jumping ship and taking cuts and contracts. So the only place for him to go is England. And let's say the market in England goes the other way, then Dortmund are in a really good position. So you just never know what's around the corner. They might win the Champions League this year. I very much doubt it, but there's always a possibility because players are that good at that level, and he's that good. He could win Champions Leagues on his own. He's that good. But for me, I'd take what's available now because an injury could scupper all that money anyway. So it's a very difficult one to keep a player if he's unhappy.
I saw a fascinating interview, and it was on the fascinating article, this morning, which was on the back of Jordan Sancho's message to Haaland after he left Dortmund. And it basically, this article said that United were going to kind of test the waters by offering whatever the release clause is, 63 or 68 million plus Anthony Martial now to see if they would take it. And I was like, if they wouldn't take 130 million cash, is that a better deal? I'm not sure it is, because I don't think you'd get. I
think it's disrespectful.
Martial's not £70 million player now, is he?
I think it's disrespectful, or sometimes to offer players because
they might not want to go.
The players might not want to go. That's the first thing. You know what I mean? Like, for clubs to offer, the Dortmund manager and coach might not rate those players who he's getting offered. So you know what I mean? If the Dortmund manager goes in with I want those two players, and if you offer me 50 million, 100 million, you can have a player. That's different. It's a different way of looking at it. But you know what I mean? I'd take Martial. I would personally. I think.
I would too. Do you know what I would do if I was Dortmund, and if United were to offer that for Haaland now? I'd say, you can have 68 million Martial, and I'd take Lingard as well, because looking at what they've done with young football, and I know Lingard's not young anymore, but he's shown at West Ham that he's got something about him, and he's shown in glimpses at United that he's just got something with the right manager. And the way they have got a tune out of sometimes players who haven't done well elsewhere, and they maybe have had perceived attitude problems, I would probably take a gamble on Martial and Lingard doing pretty well in Germany for Dortmund. But we'll see. It'd be interesting because I'm sure Sancho and Haaland would love to play together again.
But touching on
touching
on Jesse Lingard's side, he's come back with a different attitude this year again. He's obviously did well at West Ham.
No way they keep him
pre-season. No, he won't. But I tell you what, pre-season he's come back. He scored a couple of goals. He's playing well. He's looking fit. He's looking sharp. He's got a point to prove. Because this is an opportunity for him to reinvent himself within football again. He did it last year in the Premier League. So someone's going to have to pay serious money to get hold of him. Though this is the only issue. Serious
money, or what you got to look at is, like, United, in my opinion, they're not going to sign a striker this summer. They're going to sign Varane, and then hopefully they'll be looking to, like, from their point of view, they're going to be hoping to get probably a defensive midfielder. And I think they'll leave the striker till next year because they've got Greenwood, they've got Cavani, they've got whoever. However, if you're a Spurs and you want to start a bidding war and you want to try and, like, I don't think United are interested whatsoever in getting into a bidding war for Harry Kane. However, if Spurs were to go to them and say, well, if you give us 100 million plus Lingard, or Lingard and Martial, that might just be enough to perk their interest. Yeah. And I think what United do have is they've got a couple of players which other clubs would fancy, in terms of Lingard, Martial, Daniel James. I think there's Premier League clubs, there's clubs around Europe who will fancy those players. Yeah. So then it's up to them to find players in their own squad who maybe they're going to sell anyway, and try and tempt United into going for him. But it's going to be a fascinating, like, transfers have been wild. One thing I want to talk to you about transfers, mate, is when me and you we had a little talk about it the other day, was Barcelona. Like, Barcelona, like, they got this, I think there's been a wage cap brought in Spain, but, like, Barcelona in so much financial, and Madrid, by the way, but Barcelona in so much financial trouble that there's rumours they're going to have to sell all sorts, like, their best players, but also, like, release staff members, like match day staff and things like this. And then they go and sign Memphis Depay. The financial fair play stuff within FIFA is it's just pointless, mate. Yeah. It's not worth the paper it's written on. We've talked about it before, but I'm a big fan of Depay. I thought United dropped the ball with him, and I really like him. But so I'm happy for him in a way, but it leaves a bit of a sour taste, I've got to be honest.
Listen, I don't get it. The biggest thing I don't get within Spanish football is this come in all of a sudden? Have clubs known about this for years, or for a year, for another year, for 2 years, 3 years? Because if they have, as a business, this is a terrible business decision because they've released Messi. Listen, Messi's not going anywhere. They've offered Messi a 5-year deal, but to play for 2 years, but pay him for 5. How on earth can they still pay a player for 3 years after he's going to retire? I don't understand it. And they want to do it with 2 other players as well. You know what I mean? You look at Ramos has left Real Madrid, and he's obviously signed for Paris Saint-Germain. But Aguero goes and signs, and Memphis Depay signs. I don't understand it how, because they're not going for peanuts, by the way. They're going and they're earning similar amounts of money as they were at the clubs they were at, if not more. So I find it astonishing that clubs are allowed to sign players of that ilk and for that kind of money. When you're talking about releasing and getting rid of people, staff members who haven't been there for that long, I just doesn't make sense to me. I don't like it. Doesn't sit well with me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not good, and there's been all sorts of stories recently about different football clubs getting around financial fair play, and I mean Cardiff was even one of them. I read this story that how Gareth Bale, granted it was from Spain, but like Madrid were going to pay off Gareth Bale and then pay him $100,000 a week, so he was going to then sign for Cardiff, and Cardiff would not have to pay him a penny, and he'd be the highest paid player in the Championship. That's not me saying it's going to happen. It's not going to happen whatsoever. What I'm saying is, it's all clubs all around Europe at all levels are doing any and everything they can to get around the financial fair play rules, and this just makes them a complete...
It's a mockery, isn't it?
It's pointless. There's no point in them being there.
It's a mockery. You're talking there about Gareth Bale, so as long as his $300,000 a week's wages is not on the wage bill, they can pay him £10 million to get him off. Well, surely the best off keeping the £10 million in the bank and paying him monthly and weekly. And I just don't get it. You know what I mean? Because they
do save a massive amount, don't they?
Well, yeah, they do in the long run. But they could sell him. He could leave. He could leave to another club, and he could come back to England. He could go on loan where the club would pay his wages anyway. He could go to China.
Spurs, but that's the problem, isn't it? No one. Well, yeah, because he's on so much, no one will pay his wages on loan like they paid Madrid paid $200,000 of his wages last year. It's like because Daniel Levy's never going to pay that, is he?
Then it makes it a mockery for me. I just don't understand how, if they knew this was coming, why offer people new contracts a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Because this can't just be a new thing where they say financial fair play is coming in the summer. We have to get X amount of money back in the club. It just makes a mockery of it. You know what I mean? I look at Spanish football, how it's aired on TV. They don't seem to get the revenue like Sky clubs, English clubs get. So why isn't someone offering the clubs and airing the games like on BT or ESPN or I don't know, something which can give the clubs millions and millions and millions back, because Spanish football is going to be on the knees if they're not careful. Because if you get rid of these kind of players, look at Real Madrid. They're on about losing Gareth Bale. They've already lost Ramos. I watched them against Rangers yesterday. I don't know if anybody watched the game, but they were absolutely average. They were average. They didn't, Rangers aren't great. You know what I mean?
They were bang average last year, weren't
they? And Real Madrid just looked like, yes, they kept the ball half decent, but you expect that from technical footballers. I just think teams like Atletico Madrid, Atletico Bilbao, Seville, those kind of teams are going to be the ones who benefit from it, because it's going to close the gap massively, because they won't be overstretched. So their squads are going to be okay. They'll be able to probably reinvest, get better players, keep on paying the players that they've got. I look at Atletico Madrid, they won the league last year. They're on about getting Griezmann and swapping. If you can do that, then you're in a financially very good position. I just think it doesn't sit right with me fairly in a fair wise. You know what I mean? Everyone goes on about in England about this Derby and Wickham thing, which still hasn't been sorted, by the way. And it makes a mockery of football, not English football but world football. Because if an organisation can't make a decision, last year we had Sheffield Wednesday getting the points back. Shouldn't have happened. It was pointless now because they didn't need it. They went down anyway. So they've made themselves look stupid. Derby County and Wickham still rumbling on. If Wickham stay up in the Championship, how on earth can they be expected to stay up when they've lost half the team? Middlesbrough bought one of the players. They've had to release a few because of money situations. Players want to go and play in different levels. It's unfair. It's unfair. Derby can't sign any players. So you might as well
How
let
can
them
they
go.
prepare for a season?
Exactly. You might as well stick them in League One. Let them go and buy players. Stick them in League One. Let them buy 25 players, but punish them accordingly. I just don't like it. I just wish that someone would make a decision instead of dragging it on the week before the start of the season. And if it is Wayne Rooney going to be manager, let him try and be a manager. Because he can only be a manager by being judged, by doing a transfer window, by picking a team and working on players. At the minute, it's a little bit of a get-out clause because if he does badly, it's because of all this transfer embargo. But if he does well, it's still because of the transfer embargo. It's because the team came together. So he's never going to get any credit for it. But where for me, as a young manager, he needs to be tested and shown
Well, first
how
and
he
foremost,
reacts.
mate, as a young manager, he needs to stop going out on the piss and actually get the respect of his players, because otherwise he's going to keep having problems, isn't he? But well, that's another story. So we got a few various questions on various subjects. There was one I wanted to get to from Reese, which was quite interesting. It was about transfers. Gaz says, if United sign Trippier, Varane, Sancho, and the CDM, are they then favourites for the Premier League?
Trippier, Varane,
Sancho, and a defensive midfielder.
For me, I still think they're a centre forward away from winning the league. I'll be honest. I think they're 30 goals away from winning everything. I think that for me they're that good. I don't agree with the manager picking his goalkeeper now and saying that there's my number one. I think you've got to fight for that, and I think it changes.
They got
week
three
in, week
good
out
goalkeepers. There's four good
exactly.
goalkeepers, haven't they? They got four keepers who could really be number one.
I don't think you can name a number one. I think that's disrespectful to everybody else. I look at Everton. Jordan Pickford's had a wonderful tournament. They've just signed Begovic, who's an excellent goalkeeper. So it's like a club like that. You make statements by bringing players in. But going back to your point against United, listen, they're going to have a wonderful season. I just think they're a centre forward away from really, really, really winning everything and wiping the floor with everybody else. Because if it's Cavani, he's going to have to play every minute of every game for me, because they can't afford to rest him. They need that figurehead up front, because they've got the pace, they've got the guile, they've got the creativity, they've got the width. I just if it's not Cavani, who is it? Is it Rashford? Is it Greenwood? Who is it? It's got to be somebody.
When you've got, so say you've got like Sancho, Rashford, Martial, maybe, but say even if you take Martial out, you've got Rashford, Sancho, Greenwood, Cavani. And then you've got Martial, Daniel James, but then you've also got like Fernandes and whoever else. I guess if you're looking at if they all get 10 goals each, does that make up for not having a striker who scores 30 or 10, 15 goals each? I don't know. It's I agree with you. I do. I think that'll be the one position which maybe will stop them from running away with anything.
They've always had the goal scorers side. You look at Andy Cole, you look at Van Nistelrooy.
Games changed though now, haven't it? Because teams set up differently. They don't set up with two strikers. They set up with like that 3 and 1. And I
still think you need that one to be a figurehead. If for me, it's got to be. You look at the good sides. You know what I mean? Over the years, Man City. You know what I mean? The figurehead was Aguero. You know what I mean? They won everything with him there. You look at Chelsea when they were strong. Drogba, figurehead. When United was strong, you know what I mean? When Arsenal was strong, Thierry Henry. For me, I think they need those kind of players who can just be the central figure point. They don't even need goals sometimes, but it takes the pressure off everybody else.
Yeah, and I think they looked a better team with Cavani in the side last year, didn't they? They always looked better with him as the main striker. However, they've picked him up at an age where he's never going to play 30, 40 games a season. Yeah. But I guess it's about managing him. I agree with you. I don't think they're quite there. But then I think they're as close as they've been since Ferguson's left. If they were to get Haaland somehow, with some wheeling and dealing, that could be a game changer. But I also think that's not guaranteed. Like Harry Kane, if he comes in and stays fit, he's going to score you 30 goals guaranteed in the Premier League. Yeah. But Haaland, because of his age in a different country and blah, 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 maybe is a risk. But you'd also think that coming in alongside Sancho, and he's worked with Solskjaer before, he's probably got a good chance of being that striker. A few people asking about, he's gone. It's gone. So a few people asked about Harry Wilson to Fulham. This is a weird one. So, like, for me, if Cardiff City wanted Harry Wilson, they should have stretched and found whatever it was, 10 million, 11 million, because I think that they paid that for Kiefer Moore. If Cardiff, if they wanted Harry Wilson back this year, then they should have tried to find that 11 million or whatever it was. But if it was up to me solely, I wouldn't pay 11 million for Harry Wilson. I didn't think he was worth the same money as what Kiefer Moore was, even though I thought he was all right. Harry Wilson went to Fulham. A few people have asked about that and him not going back to Cardiff, or Cardiff not stumping up that money. Obviously, with the pandemic and things, should Cardiff have tried to have found that money somehow to try and sign him? No sound, mate. Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
They're never going to spend £10 million ever in this world, and if they're going to spend £10 million, I wouldn't spend it on Harry Wilson.
No,
I don't think he was good enough for me, consistent enough that I'd spend £10 million on him. If Cardiff City had £10 million to spend, what did they buy Kiefer Moore for last year? 4.5?
No, they spent more than that on Kiefer Moore, didn't they? I thought he was. I don't know. I'm not.
For me, I'd rather get two. I'd rather get two players for £10 million. I just think the value for players in the Championship this year. I look at other teams who are spending money. I look at Fulham. Is that a panic buy to keep the fans happy that they're spending money? Spending money doesn't get you success. Will Harry Wilson get you promoted this year? I'm not so sure. I just think it's a bit of a risk. If that's true, Kiefer Moore was only 2 or 3 million. Whatever. For me, £10 million then could get you 3 players. So it's.
Yeah, I would. No way I'd pay that for Harry Wilson. I think
you're buying a player, Si, who's just been the Euros. You're buying a player who's coming from the Premier League, so it's probably the valuation's probably correct of a Premier League footballer. So it's not probably overpaying. It's probably the right valuation, but I just wouldn't pay it.
Yeah, I just think even on his performances last season, look, you'd be paying it, of course, for potential. And if he has 2 good seasons, you end up selling him, don't you? But unless you go up, I thought he was all right, particularly at the end of the season. I thought he was okay. But Cardiff, if you haven't got 10 million to spend, have they? So it's
Listen, Si, if he played Birmingham, that's a bargain snip at the minute. If Harry Wilson played like he did against Birmingham City every game, It'd be worth 50 now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But it's a consistency thing, It was like towards the end of the season, he was playing a different level. He was playing to get in the Euro squad. He was playing to get a move, and I didn't see that all the way through the season. Yes, he was played out of position at times, but you look at his goals against Birmingham. He was playing out wide. He was coming in and scoring his goals out on the left. So it's he's playing out of position that day and he scored 3. So you know what I mean. I get people's point, but he scored his goals against Birmingham from out wide, so it's a catch-22 situation. You know what I mean? He's got to fill the holes where the manager wants him. You know what I mean? Fortunately, that position of a 10 is not. It's a luxury position now. You know what I mean? Especially in the Championship, there's not many teams who will play with the luxury formation and have players with the carry. You know what I mean? You've got to be winning games and being consistent in the Championship, and unfortunately, that's why players get missed out because of formations and tactics and managers.
Yeah, 100%, mate. What have you made? Someone, I think it was Leslie, just asked, what have you made of Boro's business so far? I couldn't tell you who they've signed, so I can't contribute to that. But I'm sure you know.
So they've from Wycombe Wanderers centre forward. He's got a couple of good goals. He looks like that player I'm talking about. What United needs, not that kind of quality. I mean the like of a target man that he'll hold ball up. He'll allow runners behind him. Sammy Amiobi signed from Nottingham Forest. I think it's a very good signing. Obviously, Cardiff fans will know him from their days. He's been on loan at Middlesbrough as well. I think they've gone down the route of trying to not buy anybody. So for me, a free transfer of his quality doesn't come around very often. So I think it's a good one. They've got Joe Lumley, the goalkeeper from QPR. I think he had a good season last season at QPR. So it's a decent signing because we're desperate for a goalkeeper. Lee Peltier, ex-Cardiff City fullback. We got him from West Bromwich Albion. So another good player. Fans are aware of him. I don't think he ever let Cardiff down when he played. I thought he was pretty consistent when he did play. And the latest signing is Matt Crooks from Rotherham, centre midfielder. He scored in his first pre-season game at Plymouth on Friday. So I think Neil's been quite strategic and ruthless with the players that he's brought in and the players that he's let go. I think it's with the name mentioned. Will there be fighting for a playoff place? I think it's going to be difficult. I'd love to sit here and say that Middlesbrough will definitely get in the playoffs, but I think the league's going to be so tough this year. The teams who are coming down and spending money. There's going to be a lot of movement of free transfers throughout the season, I believe, because there's that many people out of contract. So it's going to be an enthralling season to look forward to. But I'm quite pleased with the players he's brought in. I think it needs.
And of course, Sol Bamba is training with Boro, and that's an interesting one for me because it seems I think he will probably sign for Boro, even if it's on a pay-as-you-play or a just for one more season, simply because he likes Warner, because they like each other. They've helped each other off the pitch to they've got a very personal relationship. It's a weird one from Cardiff point of view because, you know, everybody, the fans, the players, everybody seemingly wanted Sol Bamba to stay with Cardiff City, but for some reason the club, well, I say for some reason, the club decided that Sol Bamba was surplus to requirements. You do have to be ruthless, but having what he's been through, I just felt like they, you know, and like maybe they did offer him a coaching role or a player coach role, and he didn't want to take it. We don't know that. I saw loads of people on social media today criticising Cardiff for releasing him and for treating him so badly after the service he's given and after everything he's been through. But the one thing I would say is, if Sol Bamba stays at Cardiff City, he's not going to play. He might play the odd game, cup games, stuff like that. He's probably not going to play week in, week out. He wants to be playing at this stage in his career. He doesn't want to be sat on the bench. And I know people, like the hearts of people, they wanted him to stay and they wanted him to go into behind the scenes and they wanted him to stay at the club for the rest of his career and stuff like that. But you've got to be realistic. And I think, yes, we released him. Could we have done it a bit better? Probably, because he hasn't even kind of put a message out, a statement out saying thanks to the fans and stuff, which to me, I think indicates that there was probably a bit of not niceness in the way he felt he was treated. Just obviously I'm hypothesizing there, but it's one of those. It's a weird one. But do you think he ends up signing some sort of contract with Middlesbrough, mate? I do, because I think the Warnock connection means that in some way he'll be at Middlesbrough next year.
I think first and foremost, just to address what you said there about the way he left, I think it's difficult because people see the illness that he had as well, you know what I mean, and probably think that the club should have handled that a little bit better. From the club's point of view, I think the decision might have already been made that he wasn't going to stay and he wasn't going to be offered a deal probably around the time before that he picked up his illness, and when his illness came, probably the club and he didn't believe that he was going to come back and play. Yes, he got offered an opportunity to play the last game of the season, which was great, and he's hopefully come through the other end of it, which is great. I know he played for Middlesbrough the other day, but he's based in Leeds, so his family are living in Leeds. He's based in Leeds, so for me, it's difficult when he's getting to a certain age in his life and his football career. If he wanted to come back to the north and he wanted to live with his family, it's a long way from home at Cardiff City. So, you know, I think sometimes people are based in an area, and everyone else doesn't realise that. You know, I've only just realised that when I've heard some interviews and things, and he said it's nice to be with the kids and with the family and back up north and stuff. So sometimes it's difficult to cherry pick and put people in an area if they're not comfortable in. I hope he stays. I hope Neil finds a place for him. Will it be in the team? I'm not so sure, because I think he's got a lot of competition for places. No. Could he coach there? I believe he could. I think he'd be a great asset to have around the place. As a person, as a professional, just as an individual, the way that he handles himself, I think he'd be a great asset to that football club. But as a player, I'm not so sure that he would play a lot of minutes at Middlesbrough Football Club with the young players and the other centre halves they've got. So I think it's a little bit disrespectful for the players who were already signed on, already there, that he's touted in front of those guys.
I think you could see just by when he was in and around the Cardiff squad after his illness, or towards the end of the season, the influence he had on the squad. And I think for me and the relationship he's got with Warnock, that's where I can see him, still carrying on his playing career, but mainly being like a coach and being in and around the squad and helping those young players develop into footballers and developing that team spirit and that the way that Warnock likes it, like us against the world. Craig just said there that Bamba did put out a statement saying he had loved his time and stuff with the fans. I hadn't seen that, I've got to be honest. And the reason I mentioned it was because I saw a load of people talking about it earlier on social media. So I assumed that he hadn't, because I hadn't seen it either. But, so I stand corrected. And Craig also said, don't forget, he got his house, Bamba's house was burgled in Cardiff. So that's going to have an impact on feeling comfortable in the area and stuff like that. I missed that. I did miss, mate, a bit. Did people in the chat will be able to tell me? Did Andy say that, or did you say, Andy, that he was living, his kids and family were living at
Leeds?
Yeah. So see, like, I'm not a football person, but like I can't imagine. I've never had to like work away from my family for any length of time. Maybe the odd week or the odd weekend, but like to go months and months and months, not living with your family and stuff, and knowing that you could be, but because you're playing football, you can't be. That's got to be difficult, and it's got to have an impact on any decision you make in regards to.
It's hard as well. It's commuting as well, like Leeds to. I've done that drive many a time from obviously Middlesbrough to Cardiff, and you don't realise how long it is until you're doing it, and it takes its toll and probably gets you for a couple of days. So it wipes you out for a couple of days. If you're doing it on a Wednesday or a Thursday, it's still affecting you on a Saturday. You know what I mean? I used to do it on a Monday morning sometimes, or a Sunday night late, and it used to really get me a couple of days, and it catch up on me towards the end of the season. You pick up an injury, and you think, I'll go home for a couple of days, but it's not easy. And if that was happening, then it's going to have an effect. It's going to take its toll, and it's difficult. But listen, people just want to be happy, and that's on the pitch and off the pitch. And if he's gone back there for family reasons, and he wants to be with his family, especially what's happened to his life recently, then I'm all for it. And if he can continue his football career for as long as he wants to, then I'm all for it. You know what I mean? Because he's definitely going to be a pundit somewhere down the line. He's the way he handles himself on the Sky and on the cameras. He's absolutely phenomenal. But I think he looks like he's still got the desire to play. He still looks like he wants to play. And if I think within that area.
Yeah, Sol Bamba is an excellent pundit. He's absolutely superb.
Say that again, mate.
I said he's a superb pundit, mate. He's absolutely phenomenal stuff. I've been really impressed by the few little bits and games he did this year and done previously. Really,
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more of him though, because I look at Scott Minto, who I think is excellent, by the way. I think Scott Minto's one of the standout ones. Is it Andrews as well? Ex Blackburn Rovers, I think is great. The Championship seems to have the best ones for me. And I think when he sits on the panel, he's just so confident and he just knows what he's talking about football, and he's tactically he's superior than a lot of people I've listened to. He knows his stuff. He's obviously been there, wore the t-shirt, played at a really high level. So yeah, he's I think his future's got to be in that somewhere down the line. But I think he's still hanging on to playing as long as he can, which is the only way for me. You know, I mean, you're a long time retired. I know that more than anybody, and I think it's so important that you play as long as you can.
Spot on, mate. So Reese asked a really interesting question regarding to the workings of transfers. I'm trying to find the exact wording, but the basic gist of it was he'd read a lot of, I think it was that he'd read a few, so he says, Andy, how do transfers work? I keep reading a club has agreed personal terms with the player and will now begin negotiations with the clubs to work out a fee for the transfer. But he said, how can that happen, or how does that happen? How do transfers work? It ranges, as far as I'm aware, it ranges from club to club, doesn't it? Because you have to get permission and all this sort of thing. So, but it seems more and more, what I'd add to that, but just before you answer that, is it seems more and more over the last couple of years that we've seen clubs giving permission, personal terms being sorted, and then they go back and negotiate some sort of figure for the between the clubs. And I think the only thing I can think with that, and you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong, is that, say, I don't know, let's say Man United and Dortmund. Man United will go to Dortmund and say, right, we want to sign Jordan Sancho. Can we speak to him? And they'll say, yes, you can, but we will not accept less than X amount. And then United will say, well, yeah, okay. And then they'll go speak to him, and then they'll negotiate they'll try and negotiate it down or whatever. But talk to us a bit about the inner workings of a transfer, my friend.
It works both ways, I think. I think some clubs like to get the transfer fee out the way and agreed, and then the player can go and discuss terms if he wants to go to the club. But some teams do it the other way around, and I believe they do it the other way around to try and get a better deal for themselves, because if the player's desperate to go, they can ask for a little bit more money. You know what I mean? Because they're on about big transfers, they're on about big players. When the big, like the Sancho, who can go and get it sorted out first, and that contract's worth £350 million, and that player's going to push through the deal, and he's desperate for that transfer to go through, so that might get another club an extra 10, 15, 20 million euros on top of it, now pounds, which is an absolute no-brainer for the clubs. But normally it's done the other way around. So I say my move to Cardiff was, or my other moves were what.
So guys, just Andy's we're having a couple of connection problems with Andy. I don't know what's going on with it at the moment. It's a bit frustrating, but get your questions in, and we'll answer them. We might do a slightly shorter show, about an hour today, but just get your questions in. We'll see how the connection settles, but get them in on any and all subjects, all football subjects, and then we can answer them and whatnot. Because it usually settles down at some point. It's frustrating, but it's getting to the point where we're going to have to look at StreamYard and changing it up a bit. But tell us, get your questions in. Andy's gone black screen now. Always handy. But we'll come back to Andy with his about the transfers in just a second, where he says about it will go from his move to Cardiff. It's interesting, but just on a side note, Wednesday evening, Super Kevin scripted returns for series 2, and we'll be doing another series of that, and then we'll be good to go. I'm looking forward to getting back and speaking. I've been speaking to him anyway, but I'm looking forward to getting Kev back and up and running and getting that series going, because it's one of our most funny and fun shows to do. It's always a good laugh. So a couple of questions. Let's have a look what we've got. Let's have a see. So Craig says, Si, what does that new deal that you announced in the week mean? So basically, with the audio side of things, every show which we do like a video version and we do an audio version. The audio versions go to the various podcast and radio platforms, like Spotify and Stitcher and things like that, so people can stream it and download it. But you have to, in order to do that, you have a podcast host, which you pay X amount of money per month, and then they distribute it to all those different places for you, and put it up as an episode and stuff like that. So what the sports social people do is they are coming in and they offer you some sort of deal, and they're basically taking over any costs which I would have had from that side of things. They will then distribute it to the same providers and everything. But what they are doing, which is something which I was looking at doing anyway, is they're giving each, because they wanted all of our content rather than just the football or just the MMA and boxing and stuff. They're giving every show its own website, audio feed, pages, everything like that. So what that does is it means that long term. So what I found is there's a lot of people who listen to the MMA and boxing show which are not interested in the football show, but because all the shows were on one feed, they would dip in and out, but they wouldn't perhaps watch regularly or listen regularly. They just dip into the ones where they know the guest or whatnot, because ultimately they wanted to listen to that guest, but they didn't want to hear about football. And it can get quite, if I put out 4 shows a week or 5 shows a week, that can get quite clogged of different episodes. And if you're not interested in 3 out of the 4 episodes, it can get a bit frustrating and stuff like that. So it's difficult on that side of things. Let's see if Andy comes back up now, because at the moment he's just a black screen. Could you hear me, Andy? No. So yeah, and basically what it means, and it also means that the audio versions have got some ads in and stuff like that. Some quite big sponsors like Boyle Sports and Vodafone and a few different things. Long term, it's very, very good for us. It saves me some money personally each month, and obviously it's a way to find new viewers, new listeners, because they've got their own following, and they do daily podcasts on Premier League and things like that, and there could be potential for collaborations with their different shows and their different, they have different guests and stuff like that. So it's it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. So that's signed on for a year at the moment, so we'll see where that develops really, and I'm excited by it, because I want to see and see where we go. All right, there you are, Mr. Campbell. Sorry, just answering some questions about. So yeah, that's where that is. Excited to see where it goes, and long term it'll be good. Donna says, "Is the championship show coming back?" Yes, the championship show is coming back. I forget the date. Andy will probably know the date more than me. It's the Friday the championship season starts, basically. So I think there's a game on the Friday which we'll be previewing, and we'll be previewing the season that night, and away we go. So what other? Oh, so and you were talking to us about transfers, mate. And the last thing we heard was about your move to Cardiff, and then it froze up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so my move to Cardiff happened, I remember that it was a Friday. I went in on the Friday morning. Steve McLaren pulled me in his office and told me that they'd agreed a deal with Cardiff City for me, originally gone loan with the transfer fee already agreed as well for me to move if the club and myself could agree personal terms. So for me, it was done the other way around, whereas the club, with the money up, they were happy for me to go, which is fine. So then, obviously, it was a conversation with the club, with Sam Haman at the time, with Lenny, obviously Corky at the time, and obviously for a couple of days before he lost his job, unfortunately. But then it's just the way of the world. It just depends how different clubs have the different ways of doing it. Normally, clubs will make contact to see if that player's available, because you see all the time unsettling players. Agents can unsettle them in the press. Clubs can unsettle players by putting a bid in, for example, and then straight away it becomes, I look at Harry Kane in the Euros, and there's an example straight away, and it happens at every level, but unfortunately it has a bigger impact than agents and other clubs are aware of.
Yeah, and adding to that, mate, as well, just you mentioned Harry Kane. The Jadon Sancho, I saw an interview with him, and he said he was only became aware of the United move during the Euros. And I found that really difficult to believe, because by all accounts, it seemed like he was on the brink of moving there last summer, but United wouldn't pay the extra whatever amount of money it was. So I think that was probably a bit almost tongue-in-cheek to make sure that no one got in any trouble for breaking any rules, I guess. But it was a very weird one, because like everyone in the world knew that it had been going on for a while. What else do we have? There's a couple of questions. There was another question. Oh, do you think Cardiff will make the top 6? No, I do not. I just don't think we got a strong enough squad to make the top 6 at the moment. We'll see who we can bring in And as much as I said I wasn't impressed massively with Harry Wilson, he was still a good member of the playing squad, and he's gone. We've brought in Collins. Remains to be seen whether Collins has been brought in to replace Kiefer Moore, because Kiefer Moore, for me, I do not believe that he is safe, that he is definitely going to be at Cardiff at the start of the season. And my problem with it is Cardiff City, if they do sell him now, I will not have any time to replace him, which means that we will be with Collins and Vassell. And yeah, well, I don't think we have a strong enough squad to pick to reach the top 6 at the moment. But we'll see. Leslie asks, who do you think's got the strongest squad, Boro or Cardiff? I think they're probably around about the same, to be honest. I don't think either will be in the playoffs at the end of the season at the moment. Although I think Boro have made a couple of intelligent signings, so maybe they'll build on what they had last year. But for me, going back to Cardiff, I do not think we have a strong enough squad in any way. It's just kind of, it's just one of those things, unfortunately. Cool. Keep your questions rolling in. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Andy's got new Wi-Fi and everything. He's got a booster right next to his device. For some reason, it's just we're having some issues. I know it can take a few days sometimes for new Wi-Fi to settle, but it shouldn't be this because it's brand new Wi-Fi, strong, high Wi-Fi. It's good Wi-Fi. Shouldn't be having this sort of issue. It's frustrating, but unfortunately, technology is where it is. Need to get into a studio is what we need to be sat next to each other, which hopefully we'll have some news on some sat next to each other type things soon. Let's have a look what else we've got in the comments. Let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in what everyone else thinks about where they think Cardiff will get. I never felt like really as if we had a good enough squad to get to the playoffs last year. I just felt like we had new manager syndrome with McCarthy. He had a really good run. And if he had come in a few weeks earlier, would he have done enough to get us to the playoffs? Very possibly. It's really possible. I'm not sure we have quite what is good enough. Paul Hipkiss says, would it be better to bin off under 23s football and bring back the reserve league? Absolutely. In my opinion, it would 100% be the best thing to do. And I know that Andy feels very much the same way about that. Simply because under 23s football is a waste of time. It's just not worth the paper it's written on in any way whatsoever. Let's bring Andy back in and we'll try again. It's Andy, Paul Hipkiss just asked us, would it be better to bin off under 23s football or bring back the reserve league?
It's the only way. It's the only thing that I've drummed on about for the past.
Yeah, it does. Frustrating this is now. Reece David Evans says, I think it's Mehmet's. I think it's telling Mehmet said, when asked where he expects us to finish, he said they don't have any expectations next year compared to last year. But they clearly expected us to go up. I think it's difficult because with the pandemic, everything changed. You didn't know how players were going to react to being with no fans and everything like that. It was just so difficult to put any prediction on it. The financial side of it, of course, and that sort of issue is...
This
there's also,
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
another side of it.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a
Can you hear me now? So yeah, I'm just saying about Andy, like he's got the new internet and everything. It's impossible. He can't do anything about it. It's nothing that he can do. It's not his fault. He's got brand new internet, and it's just for some reason, StreamYard has been really funny with him. There's no rhyme, no reason for it. Unfortunately, it's getting really frustrated. I am looking into different streaming software. There's one which I've got in my sites, which I might switch over to within next week. So we could be on a different one. It won't affect anything for you guys because you'll still watch on YouTube, Facebook and stuff. But just from our end, hopefully that will fix the problems. The one other option that we have is we do it through Zoom. The problem is with that is, one, you could only stream to Facebook or YouTube. No Twitter. You can't do all three at the same time. And also you can't have these lovely graphics and intros and all the stuff that, we like to make our show stand out from the people. But I don't know what his internet provider is, unfortunately. I'm going to tell you what, you guys, we probably are going to cut this show short a little bit. But if you send me a load of questions now, I will answer as many as I can, as honestly as I can. As I'm sure you all understand, it's really difficult with just me trying to carry it and stuff, but I will do my best. And if you send me some questions, and we'll kind of go from there. Who do we think is going to win? Who's going to get relegated from the Premier League? Give me some predictions from that side of things. Like, I'd be interested in who you guys think is going to get relegated from the Premier League, who you think is going to finish top four, and whatnot. Okay. See if we can get Andy back and go from there now. So if I bring you in there, and we'll take that off there. Let's see if we can get you in. Let's have a look. So what we've got, some predictions, any news on future guests. So let's have a look. So we have got guests booked in for the next 4 weeks, I think it is. But I'm not going to name them. Sorry, I'm just replying to Andy. It won't let him back in at all now. And next week's. So we normally like to announce the guests and stuff, but I just suggested to Andy that I let you guys know so that we can, like, a little thank you for sticking with us in these trying times with this bloody technology. But I can safely say I think StreamYard's going in the bin before next week, because it's doing my head in. I'm about as relaxed as they come. when it comes to technology and stuff, just because it's can't be helped. But I feel for Andy because I'm sure he's tearing his hair out. So yeah, it is what it is. I'll answer some other questions, but I think we're going to leave the guests and stuff like that, and we'll kind of go from there. Let's have a look at some of these questions. So predictions of Burnley are going to go down. Leslie says Watford going down as bottom is interesting. Si, what you having for tea? I'm having chicken Kievs tonight, mates, for my tea, which is interesting. What I can do is, whilst I cannot tell you the guests' names, I can give you some of their former clubs. So, what have we got? Right, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. No, so next week's guest played for Leeds United, among others. The week after, played for Cardiff City, among others. No, Cardiff City. And I think the other one is either a current player or may have recently retired. But lots of really interesting ones. Yes. Donna, if you tell me who they were, I will do that now. We can still do that before I finish up. But yeah, we got some cracking guests coming up. It's just unfortunate that we're having these issues with Andy's technology, with his internet, and if for some reason it does seem to be just Andy. Like we did a show, the Danny Bratton Fight show last night for best part of 2 hours. It was 1 hour 50. Didn't have one issue throughout the whole show. But Andy's also gone, and he's got like the best Wi-Fi that he can possibly get. It's so it's like, come on, what's going on? I'm going to get onto StreamYard this evening and see if we can sort out something like that. A few suggestions for people they'd like to get, like Neil Warnock's right up there for who I'd like to get. Would really like to get Neil Warnock on, but it's difficult when they're still in a job, I think. Of course, like Mick McCarthy and the Robbie Savage is someone I'd like to interview. Roy Keane, obviously, people like that. But in terms of like Cardiff City legends, some of the ones that Risa said there, Neil Alexander, Mark Hudson's a good one, Darren Pearce, McPhail, Steve McPhail I'd really like to get on. Yeah, it's frustrating. So the Euro sweepstake, we had the winner was Will Melhush, won £80 for his charity. And in second position was Alan Bodman, who won £40 for his charity and an Andy Campbell Football Show T-shirt. And then we also, I believe Andy sorting out a prize as well for the winner. And of course, the person, should I say, who had the worst team, which was Turkey, they had a certain little bit of money as well for their charity. Good work by Donna Perry, collected all the money up and paying out the money to the charities. I would like to say that if Alan Bodman sends me, DM me your address, Alan Bodman, and I will send you that T-shirt. And Donna will sort out the money for the charity and stuff like that. And Andy will sort out the prize. Jason Kumas absolutely would be right up there for a guest. I would love to get, because he is just one of those guys. He's an enigma, really is like a top draw, but he doesn't have anything to do whatsoever with football. So it's kind of like, I don't think he'd do it, but you never know. What else we got? Yes, indeed. If you've got any problems in your life, anything which is getting you down, you can send them in either by email or by private message to myself or the podcast pages for Dear Kev, where on Wednesday evening around 8 o'clock we'll be starting. We're doing Super Kev Unscripted, episode 1 of series 2. Really looking forward to catching up with Kev and doing those shows. So if you have a problem which you want myself or particularly Kev to give you advice on, Dear Kev is just send us an email with that as the title and or a message, and we'll sort that out for you. Absolutely. Let's have a look what else we've got before we finish up. Paul Hipkiss says, my all-time Cardiff 11, 1-11. That's difficult off the top of my head, I got to say. So I apologise in advance because I will leave people off who are heroes of mine. But I probably go Neil Alexander, Kev McNaughton, Andy Legg, central defenders. Oof, that's a tricky one. I would go. See, my first thought is Roger Gibbons straight away, but big Darren Pearce fan me, so I go Darren Pearce and Mark Hudson, and then Roger Johnson. See, yeah, his time at Cardiff, like before Cardiff, after Cardiff, not so good. His time at Cardiff, yeah, it's a shout. Roger Johnson and Darren Pearce would be my pair in central defence. Then I'd go 4 across the midfield with, I'd go Bellamy on the left. I'd go Cohen Griffith on the right. Gabadon as well. No, see, I scrapped that. I'd go Gabadon and Roger Gibbon. Gabadon and Roger Johnson would be my centre-backs. Absolutely. Good shout. I'd have left midfield Bellamy, right midfield Cohen Griffith, centre midfield I'd have Cav and Jason Kumas. Very attacking side. And then up front I would have difficult. All right, I can't fit everyone in like Scott Young. And who would I have up front? This is painful. Who would I have up front? Up front. I'd have Jay Bothroyd and Michael Chopra together. The duo. That would be my team. That's off the top of my head. I've left off loads of players. I've left off Gilo. I've left off Chopra would be definitely in there though. I've left off some real quality players. That is a very attacking side for myself. We'd smash everyone like 7-4, but we'd smash everyone nonetheless. We'd fight them on the beaches. Guys, look, I apologise profusely for the issues with the technology and stuff this evening. I am really gutted about it. It's just one of those things. No Nathan Blake, no Aaron Ramsey, no Peter Whittingham. I put Kumas in ahead of Whittingham. That's a big call. I would just about have Cav ahead of Stephen McPhail. Just. But I would probably put Aaron with hindsight, Craig. And when I actually name these players, like Aaron Ramsey would be in there, 100%. Yeah, it's difficult. Cardiff have had some phenomenal players over the years, but Paul, if you can do that, send me a DM, mate, and I'd like to sort that out because they're two are high up on my list, mate. So send me a DM to the podcast page, or my personal one, or Twitter, or whatever, and I'm easy to find. Guys, apologies again for all the technical issues. I've done my best to try and make it fun still and answer a few questions and whatnot. It is what it is. Unfortunately, I will do absolutely everything I can to sort of fix it and do something about it. I'm gonna have a look at switching streaming softwares. The problem I've got is StreamYard is not having a problem for anyone except Andy, so it's difficult then. But we can't keep going on like this, especially like if we've got a guest. It's going to be like just me and the guest with Andy popping in, and that's not the point of the show. So I think we'll go with it. But on Wednesday, Super Kev Unscripted, myself and Kevin McNaughton, go an hour to 70 minutes, just go bang, and we just talk all sorts of random rubbish. We talk a lot of movies and films. But one thing I'm going to put to Kev for Wednesday, if you'd like to all get your thinking caps on, is we're gonna pick, instead of a top 10 list for the first episode, we're gonna go top world Scottish all-time 11, and see what he comes up with, see what I come up with. And then episode 2, we'll do a Welsh all-time 11. And then we'll go back to the in the bin and all the fun stuff in the bin and top 10 lists. But we'll be talking all sorts of stuff. It's going to be fun to see what Kev's been up to in his break, as it were, see what he made of the Euros and all that sort of stuff. But guys, most of all, I will edit and make this into some sort of audio show, and I'll release it tomorrow morning. But guys, please do follow A.C.E Footy Show on Spotify. Spread the word. Even if you watch the shows on the Monday nights or Friday nights or whatever show you watch, please do download the audio episodes and listen to them. Listen to even if you only listen to half, or you put it on in the car or when you go for a run or whatever it may be, because listening to those audio shows will really, really help us, because the more they'll get listened to, the more they'll push them out. And the one thing which kind of really caught our eye with the Sports Social Podcast Network is the company which owns them owns a lot of commercial radio stations like Heart and XS and all these different radio stations. They also own a TV company. So the better we can do, the more downloads, the more comments, the more interaction we get on clips and shows and things like that, especially the audio shows, the better for us, the better for them in terms of how they look at us and the different shows we do. Got some phenomenal guests coming up on My Story. Season 3 is coming soon. Got some really good guests, and I can tell you one of them is Rodri Giggs, which we all know has got a fantastic story to tell. But I'm hoping that we're not just going to recover old ground. We're going to go into some of the other things that maybe he hasn't talked about as much when telling his story. We got a few other really interesting people signed on for that already. So loads of content coming. Loads of shows coming. And I should say as well, like obviously Paul's just said there about he might be able to help us get in contact with a couple of people. If you do know footballers, actors, musicians, bands, anybody like that, anyone who's famous, semi-famous, got a really interesting story to tell, please do get in contact with me if you can help us get in contact with people, because the hardest thing about doing podcasting is reaching, apart from reaching new viewers and listeners, is getting guests on outside of your circle or your contacts. So if there's anyone who's willing to help, who knows people, doesn't have to be just footballers, because I'm pretty set on, in terms of football contacts, it's other things, actors, musicians, whatever it may be. If you can help, then help us. Until Wednesday, guys, I appreciate your patience. I'm gonna give Andy a ring now. I got a feeling he's gonna be an angry man, which I don't blame him. But we'll have a little chat about where we can do, what we can do, and where we can go. But I have got a little plan in my head, just developing in my mind, which I think could work. So we will see. Guys, it's been a pleasure. I really, really do appreciate all of you. As I say, please download the audio versions of all the shows that we do. Please follow all the shows on Spotify as they pop up. I've put a link to the website for the Andy Campbell Football Show in the YouTube description. If you click on that, and I have put it on social media, I think, as well. But if you click on it, and it'll take you to the various places where you can get the show and stuff. But guys,
this podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero, a superhero. Breakthrough. It's taken a while. It's been worth the wait.
We are the ones who mark a new beginning.